it's really kind of a bad cycle we're in, you know. It's hard for those mid-majors and D2s and some D3s to build programs too, because they're losing all their good kids. And the thing that really bothers me are coaches who are recruiting, go out and recruit other kids before they get into the portal. Now, if a kid goes into the portal, they're open. It's open season. But for somebody to go recruit a kid, say, hey, if you go in that portal, we're going to go after you. I just don't like that. And, I think that's unethical to tamper like that. But it's out there. It's out there probably more than we even know it's out there.
And I saw a stat the other day, Coach, that said about 45% of the men's players that entered the transfer portal, 45% haven't been picked up.
Really?
And so as a parent, I'm sitting here thinking now, if my son played D1 basketball and he went into the portal and he hasn't received a phone call, and here we are right now at the time of this recording, we're at the end of May, and he hasn't been picked up, I'm concerned.
Exactly right.
Because you walked away from a scholarship.
Right.
And the whole point of this, and everyone's kind of pushed this to the back burner, your education is still the main point here.
Yep.
Because out of everything that happens in life, that education is the great equalizer.
Right.
So if you've got an opportunity to earn that scholarship, earn that degree, my philosophy has always been take advantage of that. Take advantage of getting that degree, because no one can ever take that away from you. No matter how old you are, no matter what happens to your body, you still have that degree to fall back on.
Exactly right.
And it's just, I'm concerned that they're so blinded by the money that's out there.
Yeah.
They're forgetting the main point of the college experience, and that is to meet people,
right,
develop relationships, to learn all that you can and get the degree so you can go to the next level. So a lot has changed, and I'm really prayerful that we'll be able to get things back on track.
Well, let me ask you, Michael, when's the last time you heard a recruit say, I chose this school because of their mechanical engineering program or, whatever? I mean, you just don't hear that anymore. You don't. It's, am I going to play? And how much you going to pay me? That's what they're looking for.
That's what it's pulling.
And I can tell our audience, because I recruited your daughter, Jordan, how important education was to your family.
Right.
I know you're appreciative of the scholarship and everything, but you all came in and made it very obvious to us. And I think that's why it was a good fit, because we felt the same way, that getting your degree was the number one priority. Basketball should be used as a vehicle to get you that degree, but you don't let basketball use you. Academics is where it should be at. So, and you're exactly right. I'm afraid that we continue to drift farther and farther from that all the time.
Yeah. I'm concerned, Coach, about these players who are, they're in, let's take men's basketball, and they're getting NIL money, and it's $700,000, $900,000, $1 million, or what have you. And you get that during your time, you're in sports. Well, let's say that kid does not get drafted into the NBA. And let's say they don't even make it to the G League.
Right.
Something happens and they don't make it. All of a sudden, they've got to go into the workforce.
Right.
And you're not going to start in the workforce making $700,000, $900,000 a year.
Right.
You're going to go in making $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. Now the mentality changes.
Yeah.
Because I was, I had the world was my oyster, and I could make as much money as I could think. I was, $800,000, phenomenal. Now you want me to work for $30,000 and I have to come in every day?
Right.
No one's washing my clothes. No one's giving me a water bottle. No one's planning my trips and taking care of me. And that is a concern that I have, that I don't know that everyone's seeing the big picture here. And I see it because in the banking world that I've developed my career in, we're getting applications and people that just aren't ready.
Right.
They're not ready to work. And that is a big concern, especially when you're talking about the financial industry and you have people trying to come into the finance industry that don't understand finances and don't want to work. That's a problem.
Right. Well, ever since these kids have been 16, 17, 18-year-old, they're told they're the greatest thing in the world.
Correct.
And now they go to college and they get this NIL money. That's why these kids are hanging on till they're 26, 27, because they can make really good living for a few years. They don't want to let that go. But You're exactly right. We do them a disservice when and this is my biggest problem with transfer portal, and I've talked to you about this before. I think one of the great lessons of athletics is you learn to deal with adversity. That you lose on a Tuesday night and you got to get up and get to practice on Wednesday. You got to go back to work. And you're not guaranteed a starting position. You got to earn that. And nowadays, if a kid comes up with against some adversity, they don't fight it. They just go someplace else. There's
Yeah.
kids that've played 4 years and been in 4 different schools.
Mm.
That's a red flag,
Red flag.
that they can't find happiness and you don't grow. So I feel like we really cheat these kids by letting them off the hook and not saying, hey, grow up, stick it out. Tubby Smith tells a great story of his dad, and I wish I knew it all, but Tubby Smith, was a great coach at Kentucky, won a national title. But he called his dad one night, and he was from, I want to say High Point in North Carolina, but I may be
Yeah.
wrong. But
That's high
he
point.
called his dad one night and says, I want to come home. His dad says, well, why? Are they mistreating you? He says, no. He said, are they doing everything they told you they would do? Yes. And he said, I'm just, I want to come home. I don't want, I don't want to stay here. I want to play. His dad said, well, fine, but you don't have a room here at your house. You get a job, you go get a room, you pay your bills, and if you're not willing to do that, then get your tail back on that team and start working and hang in there. And we need more parents, to be honest with you. I know parents are listening and they may get mad at me, but we need more parents to tell their kids, hey, you can't run from every problem.
Right.
You've got to stand up and face it and deal with it. And that's how you grow up. And that's how you go out in the world and you make it in the work world.
Right.
And so I wish, if you ever get a chance to find a clip on Tubby Smith's thing, his conversation with his dad, show that to the audience, because it's one of the great stories I've ever heard of a parent just saying, no, you stick it out and you grow from this.
Yeah.
So I love it. Every time I hear the story, I love it.
Yeah, perseverance is something that we have to continue to teach. And, as a parent, and I've raised two they're both adults now. One played Division I basketball, working in corporate America. One went to Carnegie Mellon, was on Broadway for 3 years, and now, he's in law school. We had a philosophy that education comes first.
Right,
And my wife and I's second philosophy was, and still is, we're not your friends, we're your parents.
right,
And when they were here, when they lived with us, here are the guidelines, and you live within the guidelines, you'll have success. But you step outside, there are going to be consequences coming
right.
mainly from us.
Yeah.
And now that they're away from home, they're out on their own, paying their own bills and living their lives, they still call us for guidance.
Right,
And we're here to guide, but this is not a hotel. You figure it out.
right. That's
Goes
right.
wrong, you have to figure it out, figure
Right,
out how to get the bills paid, figure out how to get the car repaired. That's a part of life that helps you develop and become a better person, a better human being, so that when you have children, now you're able to teach them. And
right.
that's something that I still do youth ministry in church. And coach, I tell you, it's not everybody wants to be their child's parent. They want to be best friends.
Exactly right.
It's not possible.
No.
It's not possible. So
No.
yeah, we got a lot to do. Well, coach, let me ask you this: the women's game has exploded since the last time we've talked, and they've received salary increases and more viewership. Women's college basketball and professional basketball. What in your opinion? What's been the driving force behind that?
I can narrow it down to one thing. There's a lot of people that probably disagree and may not like it, but I think Caitlin Clark put the game of women's basketball on her shoulders and just took it to another level. And I think what happened was, along with that, Angela Reese came along at the same time, who was another outstanding player, and this vibrant personality that she had. And of course, these two play each other in the national championship. I mean, they had this big rivalry between the two of them, which I think just added to it. But I honestly think that TV networks started seeing the TV rankings that Caitlin Clark games got. And it wasn't so much that they fell in love with women's basketball as they fell in love with money. And I said, man, if this kid is going to bring those kind of ratings, we want in on that. And so you're right. The media exposure has exploded. Now I remember back, not been that many years ago, when you got maybe one of every 4 NCAA women's tournament games on television. Now you get every game. I mean, every game and the ratings are high. The attendance is great. They sell out the Final Four. I mean, women's basketball is at the best place it's ever been in terms of of crowd and money and those types of things. And you're right. The collective bargaining agreement with WNBA was another big step for them. I just think that it started though Clark and what she did at Iowa,
Yeah.
and then Angela Reese, their rivalry kind of fueled that together, you know. And then I think the last thing, Michael, is that the skill level of these players, it's just gone off the board. I mean, I started, you know, back 35 years ago. Well, more than that now, going on what 41 or so years ago now, started coaching women's basketball. And, you know, the level of play was not very good. I'm just being honest. You would occasionally get, you know, a really good player, Cheryl Moore, you know, or somebody of that magnitude. But overall, across the board, it just wasn't that good. You know, a lot of high schools, their women's basketball coach was a football coach that
Mm.
they would pay him more money to coach women's basketball on the off season. They didn't want to do it, but it was a
Yeah.
way to make money, probably one of the assistants or something. But you know, coaching has just gotten better. But the talent of the players is just unreal what they can do now. And you know, so I mean, it's an exciting game. It's fun to watch, and you know, I think the future's bright for women's basketball.
Yeah.
And so far, I don't think they've been quite as jaded by NIL money as the men, but it's
Right.
probably coming. You know,
You're right.
and so that'll be another thing you'll have to add to
And
everything.
I have some interviews lined up, and if everything works out, we're going to interview one young lady who just won a championship overseas in
Hmm.
women's basketball
Right.
as scheduled. So we'll see. But I hope to bring a little more insight to parents and student athletes and coaches about the mentality in those two areas.
Right.
Coach, if you could give one piece of advice to coaches navigating today's basketball landscape, what would it be?
Keep teaching the fundamentals. Don't get away from that. And I think there's a tendency among coaches that as the players get better, which we just talked about, they are. The
Yeah.
talent level, the athletic ability, you know, it's off the charts. But there's a tendency, I think, sometimes from coaches to just lean too much on athletic ability. And this game has always been and will always be about fundamentals, about, you know, being able to do the basic things and do them well. Great teams are fundamentally sound. Great teams do the little things right. And that's one of the hardest things to get players to understand is that little things are important, you know,
Yes.
because little things have a way of growing and they magnify. And so, you know, there used to be a coach, I'm not going to name their name because it was a nationally known coach. And the kind of the reputation of this coach was they were a better coach when they had less talent because they would coach them more. The fundamentals, they would run, you know, things. And as this coach got more talent, he kind of let them run more. I mean, not so much, not transition wise, but he let them play more without, you know, structure and without really some of the fundamental coaching. And they tended not to achieve as much, you know, and I don't want to see coaches ever get away from teaching the game, the fundamentals. Those are the basics. You got to have those building blocks to become a great team or a great player. And talent alone will not do it. There's a lot of talented teams that don't make it. I was really impressed with UCLA's women in the championship game. I
Yes.
thought they were so
Yes.
fundamental in
Very well coached.
everything they did, you know.
Yes.
And it wasn't so much maybe they had, you know, that much greater talent than anybody else, but they were just so fundamental in all their aspects. So that would probably be it. Keep teaching the
Yeah.
game. Keep making sure that players are fundamentally sound and that they're doing the little things because the little things become big things if you're not careful.
Great advice. Coach, what have you learned about yourself in this season of life after coaching?
Well, when God first took me out of coaching, I spent about a year and a half asking what a lot of believers ask is, what now, God? You know, what do you have for me? And after about a year and a half, God put this desire in my heart. Basically, he said, you know, I created you to coach. And I believe that. I believe he created me to coach. And he said, I let you coach basketball for 41 years. And he says, now I want you to coach spiritual growth because spiritual growth had become a real big part of my life. And he says, I want you, because he showed me some things. He showed me these, what I call the game plan for spiritual growth. And it was 5 fundamentals, biblical fundamentals, that if a believer will use daily, that their spiritual growth will grow. And so through that, he led me to write a book entitled More, and it's
Okay.
about becoming more for Christ, becoming more Christ-like in your walk. And then from that, he's opened up doors where I could speak and where I could teach. I teach a 7-week course on this, in which I love to do. And I actually, Michael, 2 weeks ago, I actually preached for the first time and preaching on this topic. So he's really, he's just put this desire in my heart to not only grow myself, because it starts with me growing daily, but also to share what he's taught me with other believers. And that's just become very rewarding to me to be able to honor him by sharing what he has allowed me to do. So I feel like I'm living a very rich and rewarding life right now. I miss basketball. I love basketball,
Right.
but I feel like I'm still getting to coach, and that's what's important.
That's good. Now, Coach, where can people get the book?
Well, you can get it through Amazon.
Okay.
It's been out since April of 23, and
Okay.
it's simply entitled More. And so you can get it through Amazon, and there are other, I can't remember off the top of my head, some other book things. It's out in digital, hard copy, soft copy, and audio. And I read the audio, so that was a challenge trying to read and record a audio book. So yeah, but offered all 4 forms.
We'll be sure to put that information on the screen.
College basketball can be such a great thing. College athletics can be such a great thing. And I just hate that we're kind of going through a period right now where it seems like everything's negative. About a lot of it's negative. And I really don't think it has to be that way. I just think we got to get back on track and kind of get some common sense into some of this stuff, and hopefully we can let kids play and enjoy it and get degrees and be able to make them ready to go out into the world to be productive citizens, because that's what college is about.
That's what it's all about. Yeah. That's what Coach Drown, every time we sit down with you, you remind us why your voices like yours matters. You bring heart to conversations that often gets reduced to stats and headlines. So your wisdom continues to shape players, parents, coaches long after the buzzer has sounded. So listen, if you've listened to this podcast, if this conversation brought value, clarity, inspiration, do me a favor, click that like, share, and comment. We would love to hear from you if you have any comments. Your engagement helps us to reach families who need this information, because people need to understand how to get a scholarship, how to go to college. And once you get to college, how do you stay there and how do you become successful? Even after the ball stops bouncing or whatever ball you're playing with, it stops moving for you. We want you to be successful here at Recruiting from the Bleachers. So I am your host, Michael Strange. Thank you for joining us here on Recruiting from the Bleachers. Coach Kip Drown, thank you for your time. We appreciate
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. That wraps up another episode of Recruiting from the Bleachers. I'm your host, Michael Strange, and I appreciate you tuning in. Be sure to join us next week for another insightful conversation. Stay connected with us on Instagram, Spotify, and YouTube at Recruiting from the Bleachers. Like, share, and follow to keep up with the latest updates. And don't hesitate to leave your comments and questions. We'd love to hear from you. For a deeper dive into basketball recruiting process, check out our book, Basketball Recruiting, A Parent's Perspective, available now on Amazon.com. Parents, remember, from the bleachers to the big leagues to the boardroom, let's keep cheering and steering our student athletes towards success. We'll see you next time.